I'm on camera. Get it together, Grampy. All right. Hi, guys. You caught me being undignified, as if I've never actually been known to be undignified at times. But this time I wanted to, I got another dad talk this morning. This past week I found myself, my Bible reading through the life of David and the account where the ark is being brought back to Jerusalem. And it actually is the occasion for that song that was on, Undignified, where David, in his celebration of the ark coming back, was displaying himself in just joyful, jubilant, reckless worship. And to such a point where, a number of people, like particularly, were celebrating with him. And they admired David's freedom of expressing his love for God and his joy. But there was also a notable person who despised David for that, who resented it or was ashamed, embarrassed about his behavior, and that was his wife, Michal. Now, it's a fair observation to kind of, judge Michal for despising David in her heart because of, I think she was ashamed for her own reputation, and didn't see what was really going on there, which was David was just rejoicing in the Lord. She made the comment when David came back from, everything getting settled with that, the movement of the ark, the settling and all of that. She criticized him and said, well, I'm paraphrasing here. Well, how, the king of Israel, shamed himself through his display there. And so he said, and before the maidens of Israel, right? She was ashamed for herself and thought it was shameful to be displaying himself, among everyone, but including the young maidens of Israel. So I'm not sure if she was a little jealous or something there because they were all into it with him. And David said, if you think I was being undignified there, I will even be more undignified in praise to God. And as far as those maidens that you're referring to, they're going to continue to hold me in high, or if not higher esteem. So he basically said, that's too bad, Michal. I'm sorry you feel this way, but I am not going to hold back my joy in my expressing my love for God. So, and the judgment did come on Michal. It says that from that time on, Michal remained childless from that point on. So, I guess I want to draw this conclusion here that, it's way better to rejoice in the Lord, even if it's embarrassing and, shaming, basically, humiliating yourself or being willing to humiliate yourself in the face of others, because your joy of the Lord can't be kept in, right? And some people are going to celebrate with you, and others are going to despise you for it. But here's the other thing. So I think the judgment against Michal, the criticism is fairly placed, right? But I just want to bring another feature into this here that I never saw before this time through. And this is one of the beautiful things about the scriptures, is that there are always newer layers of subtlety and, application that come out as we continue to immerse ourselves in them. So, I'll have to double check myself, but I think Michal was David's first wife. I think she was the one, right, that Saul gave to David upon defeating Goliath. And through an unfortunate series of events, David and Saul, there became conflict there. Saul was jealous of David. David went on the run and, wound up being kind of, in hiding and, separate from the whole, the government of Saul's kingdom and everything like that. But anyway, so during that time, obviously he would have been separated from Michal. And what we do know is that he picked up other wives. Some of them we would readily come to name. But if you read the accounts, before David came back to Jerusalem, he was king in Hebron for 7 years. And the list of the wives he accumulated during that time was long. And when he came back to Jerusalem and his kingdom was being firmly established there, he sent Joab to go to recover Michal. And if you remember the account or know the account, Saul had given Michal to be someone else's wife while David was gone. And this guy's name was Paltiel. And when Joab comes to Paltiel and Michal and demands that, the king wants his wife back, it describes Paltiel and is weeping, and he followed them as they were taking her away, for some distance, weeping all the way and pleading, And so if you think about that as like, it's a whole mess, right? But that feature of the whole Michal situation, I think was playing into Michal's reaction to David when he was, recklessly worshiping and celebrating before the Lord. Some level of bitterness or resentment or disconnect was already there, and I think it was just capped by this last thing, And so what I want to say is, while rightly Michal was wrong for her attitude toward David and her embarrassment or whatever it was, I wouldn't be surprised that if Michal was one of among those young maidens in Israel who was admiring David's freedom in worship and saw that heart, I think she'd have been right with him. But she had a whole bunch of baggage, not just her own, right? Anybody's, capable of being, embarrassed because of someone else. But I think the whole mess with all the wives and all that stuff and Paltiel and the heartbreak and that couldn't have helped, right? So while we read that story, next time we read this story, be like David, right? Be willing to be like David, no matter what people think. And acknowledge the fact that it's wrong to be embarrassed because of what other people doing in their celebration of God, of the worship of God. But let's not then be that hard on Michal, because it was a mess. All right, so that's my dad talk today. Let's be like David, be willing to be undignified and even more undignified, because God is worthy of it all. God bless you guys.